Hello, this is William Hemphill, and welcome you to the Empowered Life YouTube channel. Today, we want to continue our series on identity formation, lessons from Exodus. And the title of today's message is How Toxic Systems Break Your Identity. Some people don't want you to flourish, they want you to comply. Have you ever thought about that? Some systems, even religious systems, don't want transformation. They want predictability, control, and loyalty. If you ever felt like your faith helped you to survive, but slowly shrank you, if you ever been told that's not who you are when you've tried to grow as a person, if asking honest questions got you labeled as difficult or rebellious, this teaching is for you. Today, we're going to talk about how toxic systems break identity using the book of Exodus as our guide, not to attack faith, but to rescue it from abuse. Here's the core principle that I want us to hold on to today. Harmful identity formation is done to you for someone else's benefit. I'm going to say that again, but just a little bit slower. Harmful identity formation is done to you for someone else's benefit. It follows a predictable pattern. And once you can name that pattern, you can begin to resist it without losing your soul, your faith, or your sanity. Let me share a personal story. I have been in churches where faith was measured by compliance. I actually remember being at a service one time, and there was a guest pastor. He was speaking in the midst of this service and wanted people to come back to the second service where he was going to preach in that evening. And so, what he did to try to compel people to come is he called people goats if they didn't come back for the evening service. In other words, he was questioning people's faith and spirituality and said, the true test of your faith is if you come back to this evening service where I'm speaking. And if you don't come back, you're a goat. I've been to other churches after pastoral scandals where leadership would bring in guest preachers and they would attack those who left, claiming that they were losing God's blessing on their lives and would find themselves in trouble because they left a church. External definition, repetition, punishment for deviation, that's the playbook. And once you see it and understand it, it is hard to unsee. Exodus begins this way. Now a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. That passage, that wasn't ignorance. That was strategic forgetting. Joseph saved Egypt in a time of famine. But what empire did, and Pharaoh represented empire, is Pharaoh erased memory, especially memories of mutuality, contribution, and dignity. Pharaoh strategically forgot what Joseph and Israel had done with Egypt, and then Pharaoh commanded, every boy that is born to the Hebrews you shall throw into the Nile. He did that because of fear. Fear that Israel was growing too big in number, and so he strategically forgot what was done so that he could persecute them, so that he could reduce their numbers and reduce his fear. That wasn't violence, that was identity erasure. No boys meant no memory carriers. No boys meant no storytellers. No boys meant no future. And so, what Pharaoh was essentially doing was trying to change Israel's identity so they no longer remembered who they were, so that they could be forgotten, so they could be submissive to Pharaoh's ideas. 5 steps to a harmful identity formation. There are 5 steps to harmful identity formation. Number 1 is external definition. Someone else tells you who you are before you can even name yourself. You are labor. You are the problem. You are too much. You're not good enough. You're stupid. You're slow. You're not smart. You are your worst moment or worst thing you've ever done. This definition comes from outside and is imposed without consent. So, external definition. Number 2 is repetition without variation. That message is repeated over and over again until it no longer needs an external voice. The child told, "You're stupid," eventually says it to themselves because the system has done its work. Number 3, isolation from counter witnesses. Harmful formation limits access to anyone who might tell a different story. So abusers, they isolate their victims from loved ones. Cults separate people from loved ones. I remember getting ready to get married, and there was a family that was close to my family. Some of those members could not come because they were in a cult. Even though our families were connected, they were separated. Abusers isolate, cults separate. Empire controls narrative because they all know this: if you hear a different truth, the spell might break. If you hear something different, if you hear a different message, something else might be formed in you that gives a counter identity, one of dignity, respect, and freedom. So you're isolated from counter witnesses. Number 4 in identity, harmful identity formation is punishment for deviation. When you step outside the assigned identity given to you, you are corrected. We're corrected through shame. We're corrected through withdrawal of belonging or isolation. We're corrected by threats, corrected by silence. You might hear phrases, "That's not who you are." Or, "Who do you think you are to actually try that?" Hey, you're getting above yourself. You're starting to smell your oats. You need to watch yourself. Punishment for deviation whenever you step outside of the assigned identity given to you. And number 5, memory erasure or distortion. Your actual story is minimized, rewritten, or erased. Think about in our country all the things going on with DEI, erasure of history. I mean, I've even heard things in some states where the educational system wants to take slavery and call it involuntary immigration. They do something like that. They erase the horrors of what happened to human beings. Memory erasure. That's why enslavers stripped names, languages, and histories. It's why they separated people who were in similar tribes from each other. A people who know who they are can't be fully controlled. A people who know who they are cannot be fully controlled. When Moses asks for freedom, Pharaoh responds, "You are lazy. Get to work." Pharaoh removes straw and increases workload on the Israelites, and that's the message. Your desire for dignity proves that you don't deserve it. Classic abuser logic. This doesn't just happen in Egypt. It happens in families. It happens in churches. It happens in racial systems. It happens in masculinity culture. It happens in all sorts of places. I look back in it and I can see layers in my own life. Church humility that became self erasure, racism, masculinity scripts that said that I didn't fit because I didn't move a certain way. Different systems, same message. You are not enough. And when that message is repeated over and over and over again, it begins to sink inside of you, and soon the script just runs. It's one of the reasons when I work with people helping them to find their confidence again, I ask them to name the story they're telling themselves because we have to identify the story in order to combat and change the story. And many times those stories were in us before we even had a chance to name our own identity. So here's the question I want to leave you with. What messages about yourself do you no longer need anyone else to say because you've already internalized them? And whose voice originally spoke these words? Naming the voice is not rebellion, it's the beginning of freedom. If this resonated with you, you're not broken, you are being formed. And what was formed in a bad way can be healed by God's grace. Thank you so much for listening to us today. Please subscribe if this message has blessed you. Please share it with somebody else so somebody else can also be blessed. Remember this: to love God, love people, love yourself. If you want to know more about how to work with me, please check the links in the description. Thank you so much for joining me today. Take care and God bless you.